From Monday, I will go on a diet. Go to the gym. Stop drinking and smoking. Start reading books. Stop wasting money. I will become a cheerful, pleasant person, the soul of the company. Make new friends. Learn a foreign language or other new skills. I'll get a raise, open a business, build a house. And for years, all this remains at the level of promises to oneself, and nothing happens. Many are familiar. But why is that? Science has been searching for decades on how to improve will and motivation. Perhaps today, neuropsychologists have come close to unraveling. Indeed, the most daring scientific hypotheses have recently been confirmed. It is not the intellect and mood that govern our behavior. The brain usually functions on patterns and automatisms. Every day we fall into the traps of our brain, but you can get rid of harmful stereotypes in order to improve your life if you know how the human brain actually works. Scientists say we are not really lazy. After all, often what many consider laziness is actually a survival instinct at a basic level. The brain consumes up to 25% of the energy of the body, but it does not like to waste it. And he spends most of his energy on mental activity. That is why, from the point of view of the brain, for the sake of self-preservation, even doing homework is less worthwhile than going for a walk. And recently science has understood why this is so. Scientists divide the brain into three functioning parts. They were formed in code and evolution. The oldest part is the so-called reptilian brain. He is responsible for instincts and basic reactions, and they are the strongest. The second part is a little weaker. This is the emotional brain, or limbic system. And the third part is the neocortex, or rational brain. He is the weakest in terms of decision-making. True, man is still a social being. The primitive ancient brain may remain silent or approve the expenditure of energy if it is aimed at satisfying basic needs, which include survival. This is why the reptilian brain is silent when we go to work. True, much more willingly, he would allow the body to take up food, sleep, or reproduction. And only the joint efforts of the emotional and rational brain defeat instincts. But, in some cases, the primitive brain still takes over. What does the brain really want, allowing us to buy unnecessary things again and again? At first, psychologists thought that the same mechanism was working as with the refrigerator, the illusion of abundance. Therefore, an excess of resources gives relief from stress. However, over time, it turned out that shopping is a bit more complicated. And yet, it is also a trap of our brain, only not its ancient part. Scientists have come to the conclusion that most often we buy a fashionable thing and immediately forget about it, because we do not need the thing itself, but the opportunity to buy it is much more important. It raises our self-esteem. And we use it. Look, people are pushing each other and pulling down barriers. No, this is not a war or riots. It's just a sale. It seems that buyers are losing their minds, because they are ready to fight for an outdated TV or iron. If they turned on the brain, they would understand that they are buying the wrong thing and they are not saving, but wasting money. According to neuroscientists, it is the reptilian brain that activates at such moments. The second level of our brain, the so-called brain of the emotional or limbic system, also creates a big problem. When it becomes overactive, we commit rash acts. How to fix these two archaic parts of the brain, the famous psychologist and economist Daniel Kahneman came up with. For his research, he received the Nobel Prize in 2002. Kahneman said that mathematics will save us. It is mathematical thinking that activates the system of the psyche, which never makes mistakes. This function is associated with our left side of the brain. However, if you have problems with mathematics, this does not mean that you will become the prey of manipulators. To train the intellect, you do not need to load yourself with puzzles, Solving crossword puzzles or playing checkers will do. The thing is that mathematics is present in any field where there is a system, and music is no exception. The quirks of human convolutions are expressed not only in this. It just seems to us that we can easily remember all the details of an event or situation, especially if we were eyewitnesses to it. But it's not. This was first noticed a few decades ago by investigators and interrogators when they compared the testimony of several eyewitnesses of one catastrophe. Surprisingly, the picture of each witness differed in several details. Then they started talking about cognitive distortions, errors of thinking. Then it became clear that there is a more general effect of the so-called false collective memory. But is it possible to fight this at all, and how to remember everything as it was? Scientists have established that we can immediately fix 3 to 4 details of what is happening. But what exactly? Depends on the individual. People will describe the same situation in different ways. For example, a man on the street quarreling with his wife hears music and immediately sees a beautiful stranger passing by. Then, having heard such music, a man realizes that it evokes pleasant memories in him. He will remember that beautiful stranger, her walk, her eyes, and the scent of perfume. But for his wife, the same notes evoke other associations. To save resources, the human brain lives on patterns or automatisms. It is hard to believe, but he will resist any mental effort. This also applies to such complex things as behavior and relationships in society. All good men are long gone, and good women are never alone. Those who have been looking for a couple for a long time and unsuccessfully are sure of this. And around only come across married good men and married not women. And bachelors either drink or something is wrong with them. Psychologists are sure that this is another trap already from the rational part of the brain, the neocortex. It is there that the dominants are hiding, those attitudes that distort our vision of the world. Among the most dangerous stereotypes of behavior is the projection of someone else's experience onto oneself. This mechanism also arose in the course of evolution, but has long been outdated. Once the key to survival was to copy the behavior of the more experienced. And the person transferred this pattern of thinking to everything else, which is not always justified. Family curses. Crown without brothers. What women just don't say if their families have collapsed. Only the dark forces are not to blame. The main evil, according to psychologists, is in the head. From birth, the child sees the scenario in the life of the family and perceives it as a model of behavior. And repeats. Husband left grandmother. My dad left my mom too. So, my wife is coming from me. With such fear, the girl marries. She may not even admit it to herself, but deep down she is not so much interested in the family as waiting for him when misfortune overtakes her. Feeling no love, the husband leaves. A woman receives long-awaited emotions. Realizing that this is a brain trap and not a punishment, and not a family curse, a person gains every chance to become happy. He will be able to build a family and live in harmony for many years in love and harmony. It has been proven that although the brain is not a muscle, it can be pumped up. Every day, scientists invent new gadgets for this. Already today you can adjust your mood like the temperature in the room. Put a neuro hoop on your head and turn on the desired mood in the smartphone application. And with the help of this device, you can already regulate dreams. You have to put it on your head and go to sleep. And this bandage is a neurostimulator simulator for the brain. According to the developers, it improves memory and speeds up the learning process. Students are satisfied. Scientists have presented new evidence for the existence of digital amnesia. An alarming trend is fixed by experts. Our brain forgets everything that is read on the internet. Columbia University professor Batsis Barao first investigated this phenomenon and, together with colleagues from different countries, found an explanation. Evolution forces us not to keep in mind facts that are not vital. Today, when the flows of information have exceeded all conceivable volumes, it is especially obvious that patterns or automatisms have appeared from here. But that is not all. Batsis Barao explained that even before the advent of computers, people knew how to store data on external physical media. On the one hand, these were the people themselves, carriers of professional technologies. In case of need, they could be contacted. At the same time, books are undeniably useful, but the new trap is that even they do not develop the brain and memory. Strange as it may seem, physical movements are the most effective when pumping the brain. Evolution has arranged our brain so that it constantly receives signals from the body. If there are few of them, for example, a person sits a lot, then the brain falls asleep. Psychologists, in order to get a person out of depression, often advise changing the usual course of affairs. Choose a different route to work, take up a new sport. Unfamiliar activities form new neural connections, which means it turns on the brain. Just look at these exercises. This is neurogymnastics. It would seem that nothing complicated, only without concentration such movements cannot be repeated. It is easy to twist with hands and feet, and if in different directions and at the same time, then it is not so easy. The brain develops at such moments and both hemispheres are turned on. Such exercises and intellectual load are cures for dementia. And to put it simply, from dementia. Today, people under 50 often suffer from this, although it was considered an exclusively senile disease. Just look at Chinese pensioners, many over 70. In the early morning they cheerfully go to exercise in the park. You can't even call them old people. So did our compatriots. What is the secret of the older generation? The right movements will help turn on the brain at full capacity. But how to make it work the way we need it? It turns out that there is a trap for the brain. Psychologists and coaches teach to write plans and desire on paper. And this is not mysticism or self-hypnosis. Doctor of Psychology Gail Matthews from the Dominican University conducted research and tested how to properly achieve goals and desires. The study involved 267 people of different professions aged 23 to 72 years. Participants from the USA, Belgium and England set goals for the 4th week. Some wrote tasks on paper, others promised friends. Still others made plans in their minds. A month later, it turned out that the written plans were implemented by almost 100%. What is the secret? Doctor of Psychology Matthews came to the conclusion that writing a goal helps to focus attention, present details, and think over the execution. Therefore, keeping a diary or writing down plans for the week ahead works. Things get done and dreams come true. The brain needs specificity and detail. It is not without reason that psychologists are often advised to present their dream in detail. Feeling, shades, smells. How will the steering wheel of a new car feel in your hands? What will smell in the kitchen in the new house? Detailing helps the brain make desire available. But there is also a downside. It is for this reason that fears often come true. We think about them too often, which means we know the details. How harmless, but we are not always masters of our brains in relation to the most important. The brain itself decides what details to remember and what to put away. For this reason, people began to conclude contracts, agreements, prescribe details. It is on the letter that all the conditions become clear to everyone. In words, everything is perceived differently. And this is not the only reason why the events of one's own life should be stored not in the head, but on any external media. The brain is extremely unreliable also because fantasies and memories are one and the same for it. Only one part of the brain is responsible for this. This was established by a group of neuroscientists led by a psychologist, professor at Oakland University, Donna Rosa Diz. They explored human memories and imagination. As neurophysiologists have found out, the brain does not see the difference between real experienced events and impressions from a book or film. Already today, psychologists use the plasticity of memories and help victims of terrorist attacks, as well as people who have experienced violence or war. They replace one memory with another. Plastic memories will help fight phobias. For example, scary news footage of a plane crash can be replaced by an association with a comfortable chair or watching clouds. By the way, aerophobia is another brain trap. Many people believe that flying is dangerous. At the same time, they quite calmly get behind the wheel of a car, although, according to statistics, much more people die from car accidents. The cause of aerophobia is the illusion of control. Another illusion: I can't be deceived. Many assure. This is also an extremely dangerous trap. Experts have an interesting term: the blind spot effect. People often do not accept the possibility of being deceived. Non-acceptance of deceit suffers not only alone, but also in groups. Dozens, hundreds and even thousands of people can fall into such a trap at once. In the 90s, 3 letters M thundered throughout the country. They were associated with a fairy tale, a beautiful life and quick enrichment. When the pyramid staggered, many did not believe in deceit. They justified the creator of E. People are happy to fall into a similar trap even now. In fact, double standards and games of this is different are common to almost every one of us. The settings of the ancient reptilian brain cannot be bypassed or mastered, but they can be realized and then learned to control your instincts. After all, if we know what the brain really wants, then we can consciously choose for ourselves, save energy and stay in the comfort zone. Or to understand that they have gone too long way of evolution and knowingly gained intellect and feelings. And there is always something worth striving for and for which to move on. Write your opinion on this in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video.